Hey friends, it has been a long week for me. If you cannot tell, my eyes are having a hard time staying open. That's because for the past 7 days I've been in ICU, so intensive care unit with a loved family member. Haven't slept much. When that person got sent home, things were done incorrectly, and we had to go back to the emergency room last night to address the problems, and so I was there till 2 a.m. Needless to say, I had a revelation as I was going through this. Maybe it's because it was 2 a.m. and I don't know. You have weird thoughts when you're tired. But I realized that it has been a really hard week for me in terms of staying healthy and staying mentally clear. My reading habits have gone to garbage. And I realized that life sort of just has this way of throwing you curveballs. And I combined that experience with the fact that I interviewed Dr. Martin Jacobsen last week about reading concepts. And I asked him what his tips were for getting back into the habit of reading if you've fallen out. So his response was that we need to find some slow rabbits. That's the term he used, slow rabbits. And the idea there is a book that is sort of easy to keep up with, isn't sort of above the pace. And so I've been thinking about that all week. I thought that was a really good tip because when we get into reading, we think, I'm going to read these really big, important, fantastic books. And we just kind of bury ourselves in the hard work of reading sometimes. So because I'm tired and because I've had a rough week, I thought it would be really nice to talk about 9 books that have been helpful in my life to get me back into reading when I've fallen out of the habit. And I do. I fall out of the habit all the time because of stuff. So I did just grab a bunch of books off the shelf, and there are 9. I've got some fiction here for you. I've got some nonfiction. I've even got a work of poetry in here. But hopefully one of these will help you find an easy path to get back into reading if you're struggling to do that. All of these books are short. They are easy to read. So the first one here is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I read this in high school, I think, for the first time. And I was just so blown away by the sort of simplicity and at the same time depth this book had. So it's about 160 pages, somewhere in there. I like this edition because it's on this really nice rough paper. Kind of geek out about the book. I also like these books that have this really durable hardcover. I've had this copy for 20 years, I don't know, a long time. And it looks like I just bought it. It's just beautiful. Anyway, this is the story of a little shepherd boy named Santiago. And the idea is that he has to leave his flock and go on this huge trip, right, in search of treasure. And it's the concept of starting off on your journey to find worldly goods. And as you go throughout this trip, he ends up meeting all of these sort of mysterious and interesting people and realizes that the treasure is something a little more internal. So there's a really nice message to this about being present, about appreciating, and about beauty. The second one, there's 2 books in my life that have made me laugh out loud when I've read them, like audibly laugh out loud. And this is one of them. This is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, and I love this book. It's just the reason why I love it is because it's the story of a teenager who is just sort of disillusioned, which is all teenagers. I was disillusioned as a teenager. And the main character's name is Holden Caulfield. One of the best parts of this book is it's in first person, and he just the voice. Holden's voice is hilarious. The way he just deals with problems and the way that he sort of sees things. Everything from, how to approach girls to how to deal with friends to whatever. So if you've ever been a teenager or you have teenagers right now, Catcher in the Rye is pretty great. Let's see, this copy here is a little over 200 pages. Fits in the back pocket. I love this. I love little books that will fit in the back pocket of my jeans. That's great. This next one is a nonfiction book. If this is your first video that you've seen at the Readable Podcast, hi, my name is Eddie. I'm really glad to have you here. Man, I'm tired. It's been a long week. But I often focus on philosophy, anything with a philosophical bent. So I've always got to have 1 or 2 philosophy books to talk about. And this is the Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. Now, It's a small book, and you might be thinking, Skip, I don't do philosophy. I would ask you to just hang out for a second with me. So this book right here, let's see. It is all of 137 pages, right? And most of it there's a big chunk in the beginning that's just introduction. So the guy that wrote this is in prison when he's writing it, and he is really sort of frustrated about his situation. It's in dialogue form, so there's two people talking back and forth, and Boethius is one of the characters who is in prison awaiting execution, and the other character is the lady of philosophy. So she visits him in his prison cell, and she teaches him about sort of the higher value of living, what it means to live well, sort of the nature of evil. There's several different sections that they talk about, but the whole goal is to help him see past his really crappy predicament, the thing that is going wrong, something that would have been helpful for me last week, and instead to sort of let go of the stuff you can't control and focus on the stuff that really matters. So if you've been thinking about philosophy, this is a really good one. The Consolation of Philosophies. Big deal. Book number 4. I love this book. I love this book because it's really easy to read, and it is you walk away sort of breathless, and I don't know why. But it's Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. So if you've ever you probably read John Steinbeck if you live in America and went to English class in 10th or 11th grade. We all had to read it then, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope kids are still reading it now. Oh, I sound really old, an old guy. Anyway, Of Mice and Men is a very short novel. Let's see, this one here, this edition, has it clocking in at 105 pages. So, and the reason why this is an easy book to get into, but is very powerful in its story. Steinbeck is not at least in my opinion, he's not a very flowery writer. He's not a very sort of convoluted writer. Instead, he's more of a thematic writer. He's somebody who really tackles hard stuff, and but does it in a way that high school kids can understand. And any high school kid that actually read this instead of cheated and watched the movie with Gary Sinise, which is a really good movie, by the way, but if they don't cheat and actually read the book, every one of them say the same thing. I'm like, wow, that was actually really good. And this book tends to stick with people. So if you've been thinking about John Steinbeck, check out Of Mice and Men. It's a great book. The next one is a book that sort of made me sad and excited and worried and all the things that you feel when you're a human being, which is what good works of fiction or nonfiction should do. This is actually autobiographical work here, but this is called The Hiding Place by Corrie. You guys are going to love this book. If you choose to read it, here's why you're going to love it. So Corrie and her family live in the Netherlands, and this is during World War II. And under Nazi occupation, their family has this building. It's been a long time since I've read this, so I gotta get this right. But in their home, there is a secret room, kind of like the Anne Frank story, right? The Diary of Anne Frank. Both true. But in the Netherlands here, their whole mission as a family is to try and hide and protect as many Jewish people as they can. So they're hiding them in these rooms. And I don't want to give too much away, but ultimately they get caught. And it's the story of this family and these sisters as they experience the concentration camps and what they went through. It's beautifully written. It is a really great way to get experience with sort of the World War II war, and also to just have some empathy for people and for the human condition. Okay, I'm really excited about this one. This is a work of poetry, and he is a fantastic poet. In fact, he's probably the most popular poet. I could be wrong. I'm not a poetry expert, but I see his name everywhere all the time. This is Billy Collins, his book, Sailing Alone Around the Room. What a cool title. But Billy Collins is this poet who is just sort of bringing poetry back into the camera, into the view, I guess. But I love him because his poems are just, I don't know, they're not hard to read. They're not overly, layered and nuanced. They're just really good poems, and they're just beautifully done. And they're I don't know, like this one's called Purity. This one's called Directions. This one's called Workshop. Fishing on the Susquehanna in July, The Night House. He's just a great poet. The New York Times review on the back says it's difficult not to be charmed by Collins, and that in itself is a remarkable literary accomplishment. Yeah, his poems are just great. So check it out. And look, it's thin, right? So you can enjoy this on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Make yourself a little cup of tea, hang out with Billy Collins, and find some beauty. Okay, all right, I got 3 more to go here, and I hope you're enjoying this video. Let me know if this kind of video is interesting to you, because I'm sort of experimenting with my video style, trying to figure out what's resonating with you guys. I would love to get more questions from you or comments in the YouTube videos so we can start some conversations. But let me know what kind of videos are working, which ones aren't, because I really want these to be valuable to you. All right, we're going back to high school English again. But these are books that changed my life, and my experience with them has always stuck with me, and I love them. So it's not a thick book, it's an easy book to read, and it is, of course, George Orwell's Animal Farm. Animal Farm is this satirical look at human beings and the power struggles they get up to in order to get ahead, take advantage, lie, cheat, do all of the crazy stuff we do. But on the surface, we make everything look sort of, okay, like we're being honest. And it's this really great story of a bunch of animals on a farm, clearly, who overthrow the farmer. And they kick him out, essentially. And they begin to run the farmhouse and the farm, and a specific group of animals begins to take charge. It is the pigs. You've got Snowball and Napoleon. I gotta remember the characters here. They're the main pigs. And the beautiful concept here is that they overruled the farmer because they felt oppressed and wanted their freedom. And once they got it, all that happened was a new group of sentient beings got into control, and now they're in charge and oppressing all the animals. So it's just the cycle of power. And Orwell is definitely making a statement that politics are not always above board. I know, shocker. All right, this one is a book that we read in book club that I host online, which is why it's got all of my beautiful notes on the side here. This is The Intellectual Life by A.G. Sertillanges. Now I'm going to give you a sort of a waiver or a warning statement here. It was written at a time where some statements are being made in the book that aren't necessarily that I don't agree with. But the book itself is amazing and gorgeous and beautiful, and it's really well done. Sertillanges was a friar, if I remember correctly, from the Catholic faith, and he was writing this book to help the young men in the religion sort of grow up to become fathers and religious leaders. I'm not a religious person, so I don't know the terminology. But this book sort of expanded past that universe into just sort of common reading. And so many people love it. And I think it's because of all of the wisdom it has in it. Now, the word I was looking for before, it can be a little misogynistic. That's it, right? He makes some comments here about how the woman is supposed to serve the man and on and on. Ignore all that garbage, right? This was written a long time ago. I'm not making excuses for it. This is what they thought back then, but I don't want you to miss out on all of the greatness here, because all of the concepts apply both equally to men and women. The idea being that if you want to lead an intellectual life, there are really some changes you can make right now to learn how to focus and how to take better notes and how to be a better reader and how to think clearly and how to spend your time without letting it getting ripped away by all of this unnecessary stuff. And it was written, let's see, this is the first published in 1920, which is interesting because, you might argue that this doesn't apply today because there's so much technology now that the way of building an intellectual life isn't applicable. Not the case. Everything he says here is still very applicable and really good stuff. The last book I want to share with you today, before I share it with you, I would like to just ask you a major favor. Next week, I'm really excited to be making a huge announcement. So as I mentioned earlier, I have an online book club that I run. We meet every Tuesday online in my reading community. You can go to thereadwellpodcast.com, and up in the top navigation, there's a link that says book club. You can learn all about it there. As of this filming, I only charge $9 a month for that, and that helps cover the software costs and the meeting expenses because it's not cheap. But the goal there is to bring us all together, be together face to face, have great conversation about books like this. But next week's video on YouTube, also on my podcast, I'll be announcing the next 10 books we're reading in book club, and I will post them on that link I just sent you to. So I'm really excited, and if you've been thinking about joining my book club, now is a really great time to do that. We've just got a lot of great stuff coming. So stay tuned for next week, and you'll see the next 10 books coming. Okay, the last book I had might freak you out a little bit, but it's a good one for a reason. This is a philosophy book. That's why it might freak you out if you're not of that persuasion. But and it is Plato. So sometimes when we hear Plato, we think, nope, too heady, too whatever. But this is a really great book. So Plato's Phaedrus, Phaedrus. This is one of my favorite Plato dialogues. So Plato wrote in dialogue form, much like you're reading William Shakespeare or a play or whatever, like Boethius. We talked about Boethius, between him and Lady Philosophy. Well, here, when Plato writes, the main character in his book is not himself. It's not Plato. It's Socrates. And in fact, that's how we know about Socrates. Socrates never wrote anything down. He just walked around and talked to people. Plato was one of his students who wrote a bunch of stuff down. He created these fictional narratives to, one, immortalize his teacher and get the concepts on paper. But in Phaedrus, the reason why I like it, Socrates is talking to Phaedrus, and there's a really key concept in here that I like to call Plato's charioteer. And here's the idea. So as a human being, you wake up every day and you are divided. Your soul is divided. And Plato knew about that, and he was trying to teach you why you feel divided. What I mean by that is that you want to be a really good and honorable person sometimes, and other times you just want to go out and, I don't know, get drunk and stay up late and, do things you shouldn't, right? You're just pulled in directions all the time. And so Plato's charioteer is a sort of a visual picture of why that is. And the concept is this: you have a charioteer, a guy riding in a chariot, and there are three beings to pay attention to in Phaedrus. The person driving the charioteer represents your reason. This is sort of your ability to make the decisions, right? Did I go left? Did I go right? He is trying to steer the chariot. And at the head of this chariot, you're being pulled by two horses. One of them is, I believe it's called Thumos, the horse of spirit, the spirited animal, right? This is the animal that wants to help you ascend to the heavens, to be the best version of yourself, to do all of the right stuff, to wake up early on time, to read your books every morning and all that other stuff. This horse does everything it's asked to do. It does not complain. It works hard. It has smiley, beautiful teeth when it smiles. It's the perfect creature. Well, the other horse is the appetite horse. This is the horse that is all of the ugly stuff that exists in you, all of your shadows, right? And this horse doesn't listen at all. It's just dumb. It craves things. It pulls the chariot that way when it's supposed to be going that way. It bites, it kicks, it screams, whatever else. So it's a really cool sort of dig into why we are divided as humans. And this particular, this is the Penguin Classics version. I like it because it's translated well enough. And I also like it because they took the liberty of actually describing who's saying what. So it says Socrates and then has the explanation, and then Phaedrus. Some of the dialogues don't have that, so you're never quite sure who's talking. It's frustrating. But this is 68 pages. Easy introduction to philosophy, easy introduction to Plato. All right, guys, I hope you got something out of that. I hope you liked it. Thank you for supporting me on this channel. It's just a pleasure to be here with you every week talking about books. But I am here. I want you to know that. So if you have questions about how to build better reading habits, I don't always have the answer. All I know is that I love to read. I love this community. And if I can answer your questions, I'll make a video about it and share it with you as soon as I can. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know how I'm doing, what questions you have, and I hope to see you in the book club. See y'all next week.